In the early 1970s, the United States government tried to remove one of the most famous musicians on earth. Not for a new crime, not for violence, but for what he might inspire. His name was John Lennon, and for 4 years the question wasn't whether he could top the charts, but whether he would be allowed to stay in America at all.
The cries of the crowd grow in pitch and volume, drowning out the whine of the jet engines. And here they are, fresh from their triumphant appearances in the United States. 12,000 young Britons roar a welcome. Their shrieks rise in an awesome wave. Our staff scientist, in an odd moment, calculated that this young mob is generating enough energy to put 3 Atlas missiles in orbit and power 54,000 transistor radios.
If you grew up in the 60s, you know rock and roll wasn't just music. It was identity, rebellion, generational power. In February 1964, when the Beatles stepped onto the Ed Sullivan Show, more than 70 million Americans were watching. That night didn't just introduce a band, it introduced a cultural shift. One of those 4 young men, the one with the round glasses and the restless mind, would eventually test how much power a musician could really have. But how does a Beatle become a concern inside the White House?
I think all our society is run by insane people for insane objectives. You know, and I think that's what I sussed when I was 16 and 12 way down the line, but I expressed it differently all through my life. It's the same thing I'm expressing all the time, but now I can put it into that sentence that I think we're being run by maniacs for maniacal.
By the early 1970s, the Vietnam War had dragged on for over a decade. More than 58,000 Americans were dead, and television carried jungle firefights into quiet suburban homes. Then came the Kent State shootings. 4 students were killed and 9 wounded. The country wasn't just divided, it was fractured. Campuses erupted, streets filled with protesters, and in 1971 the 26th Amendment to the United States Constitution lowered the voting age to 18. Millions of young Americans could now vote, just 1 year before the United States presidential election of 1972. A generation raised on rock could now choose the president, and somewhere in Washington a quiet calculation began. What if one musician could move that vote?
Everybody talking about baggers and draggers and baggers, shaggers and this, that isn't prismism, kismism. All we are saying is give peace a chance. All we are saying is give peace a chance.
In 1971, Lennon and Yoko Ono moved to New York City. He wasn't retreating from politics, he was stepping into it. Give Peace a Chance filled anti-war rallies, and Power to the People was direct and unapologetic. In May 1972, on the Dick Cavett Show, Lennon spoke openly about surveillance, the war, and his suspicion that his phone was tapped. He met with activists like Abby Hoffman and Jerry Rubin, and together they discussed concerts designed to register young voters. Tens of thousands of newly eligible 18-year-olds gathered from amplifiers to absentee ballots. But did Washington see art or strategy? Later documents revealed that Senator Strom Thurmond warned that Lennon's influence could sway key states. Soon, the Federal Bureau of Investigation opened a file. Events were monitored, associations tracked, intelligence memos circulated. The administration did not challenge his speeches or censor his songs. Instead, it reached back to 1968 and a minor cannabis conviction in Britain. Old, small, nearly forgotten. Suddenly, it became the government's sharpest legal instrument. If Lennon lost the case, he would not headline rallies. He would be on a plane out of the country in the middle of an election cycle. Was it enforcement or containment?
they're even sort of changing their own rules to get us, you know, just because we're peaceniks, really.
Do you think it's because of your anti-war action and not your marijuana conviction?
Well, I mean, let's say that a few friends of ours in the pop business have exactly the same conviction as me and are allowed to come and go as free as they like. They just don't happen to have the same point of view as me, or they don't state it.
Will you now stop speaking out against the war?
No, nothing will stop me, and whether I'm here or wherever I may be, I'll always have the same feelings and say what I feel, you know.
In March 1973, an immigration judge ruled Lennon excludable. In July 1974, the decision was upheld. From concert arenas to federal courtrooms, Lennon and his attorney, Leon Wildes, appealed to the Second Circuit. The question sounded technical, but the stakes were enormous. Could a foreign conviction, without proof of guilty knowledge, justify deportation? On October 7, 1975, the court ruled in Lennon's favor. Judge Irving Kaufman wrote that the courts would not condone selective deportation based upon secret political grounds and described Lennon's 4-year struggle as testimony to his faith in the American dream. In July 1976, Lennon received his green card. He stayed. After the Watergate scandal exposed the machinery of political surveillance, additional files became public. An FBI dossier, 281 pages long, revealed how closely Lennon had been observed. Historian John Wiener spent years fighting to have those records released. There was no evidence of violent plots and no criminal conspiracy, only concern about influence, mobilization, and inspiration. At the beginning of this story, the government was not afraid of a crime. It was afraid of what he might inspire. The Lennon case was not just about immigration law. It was the moment rock and roll collided with executive authority, not with riots or slogans, but with court filings and political calculation. John Lennon lost his band and his privacy, but he proved something unexpected. A song does not have to topple a government to make it nervous. And sometimes, making power nervous is power.